I released a video saying, please share, help my small business that got vandalized last night. Please share it around. And
I didn't see this. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks for having me.
Here. Why don't you quickly give an introduction, who you are? And
Straight down the barrel. Hello, attention seeker podcast. Oh no, Stansplaining.
Same thing.
Hey guys, I'm Kennedy. I am a self-made entrepreneur and I'm from Auckland, New Zealand.
So, self-made entrepreneur is a real good way to introduce yourself because that's where we're going to start. So, I've got here that you started your first business as wedding photographer. How old were you? What was it? How did that happen?
Yeah. I should clarify, self-made within reason.
Yeah.
Like, there's obviously a big term in that, and
of course.
We'll dive into that. But I personally view that, yes, I'm self-made and within reason, but I had a lot of help and environmental purposes that obviously are now probably considered a huge privilege. We'll get into that. But how it started was, yes, wedding photographer, had a business called KJA Photography, which is straight my name. Pretty inventive at 15. And honestly, I'd had a camera for about a year before I decided to go straight into wedding photography. I just thought I was the bee's knees. I was like, well, I'm always going to do something big. And first one out of the ranks was this. I'd shot a family friend's wedding. Cool. I was a side shooter, what they call. So just hired a secondary, as you do for a 15-year-old. And it was really, really cool. They personally sat me down after the wedding and was like, hey, we love your shots because they're offside, they're candid, they're not as forced and posed. And I'm from a small town called Waiuku, so from South Auckland. So the people there, for as far as staged over the top photos, it just wasn't a thing. I was like, oh, I've got a niche. I was like, here we go. This is onto it. So I started doing, wedding photo, honestly, all through word of mouth. My mum is a hairdresser beauty salon. So we had this wedding hair type scenario happening. Good. It's Waiuku, we all know each other. So she's like, oh, do you know my son? And then on the side, they also, every now and then, my parents would decorate weddings as well. So we kind of had this little one-stop shop scenario happening. And it progressed really quickly. Over a year and a bit, I shot close to 40 weddings.
Shit.
Yep. Dirt cheap. Literally, I thought I was rolling and I was wow, $1,000 for your entire wedding? Done. And at 15, that's crazy, right?
Shit,
I didn't do 2 to 3 weeks worth of work of editing afterwards and still think it was worth it. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of work. And pretty much the big kicker of it all was I just finally reached a certain age where I was like, this is way more stressful as I grow up and realized the importance behind what I'm doing. And I had 1 or 2 brides where I was like, whoa, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is,
really?
This is wild. One in particular that was just sat me down, was like, hey, I know you you're learning, but can you undo all the things that you've done to my face? And I was like, Mum, I haven't edited her face. I was like, what do I do? I was like, I don't know how to tell her that that's just what she looks like.
You look like.
So I quite quickly backed out of that and realized that one corrupt SD card away from ruining someone's entire day, that I was like, no, okay, this isn't for me. But I think we clocked out at about 45 weddings for the business.
Crazy.
and shut that one down. That was the first one ticked.
How long did you do that for? What was the period? 15 till?
I think before I left home. So I left home at 18. So
Yeah. And then I want to go back to the parents. So your mum had the salon. What was your dad doing?
So dad is just a smart bugger. Technically he's a specialized engineer is what he calls himself. But that's just a jack of all trades, right? He just does everything. So in particular, his mind is crazy how it works engineer-wise. But overall, I think what he would do is there's a business would come to him with a problem. He invents a machine solution, builds it himself, and then sells it to them at a good price. And that's just what I've seen him do time and time again. Within reason, there's all the way from horse trucks to chicken nugget elevators. This random world where it's all kind of started. He was a boat builder by trade originally. Where it all kind of began. Kennedy Launches was what he built. Hence the name. And so both of them are very creative, very smart, and both of them had their own businesses. So Craft Installations was my dad with a K, and Haircraft with a K was my mum's business.
Got it. Which you've obviously followed
on that suit.
You're the New Zealand's Kardashians.
His mum would love to say,
That's so funny.
Yeah, so that's where that came from.
And that's been your whole childhood, was that?
Yeah, pretty much. My parents have never not owned their own businesses. My mum's salon is 30 years. And then dad the exact same. And we've never, they've never had I don't know what it was like to have a stable job, none of that. It was always, and most of my childhood, they were very busy, building as you were. And just kind of got used to that lifestyle. There wasn't really a 9 to 5, no start to stop.
No.
And it was always if you just want something, figure out how much it costs, then figure out how to make that money and then make it. It wasn't Like, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super hard workers, like
Yeah, yeah.
almost learn how to like not do that. Because like
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like watching Dad and I'm like, that's a lot of hours and a lot of work for like what you've created. When
Yeah.
like I can like do an Instagram post, you
Yeah.
know? Like I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah, yeah.
wildly different. But within reason, like, you know, the coolest part about like what my dad does is he'll build a machine and be the only person in the world that knows how to fix it.
Yeah.
And so like
Serves
that was where I
contracts.
started to learn like economies of scale and whatnot, you know,
Yeah,
like
great.
first-hand evidence of like being able to charge whatever you wanted to because
Yeah.
you're the guy that made it.
Because no one else can do it.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love
So like
that.
finding those like niches was
Yeah.
like a pretty cool thing early on and just like learning from them. And I think probably the biggest thing was hustle, was
Yeah.
just like learning from them that like,
Yeah.
yeah, they were like, they'd always tell me that I better enjoy working because I like expensive things.
Yeah,
they were like,
yeah, I love that.
You better like working because far out. Luckily I do.
What was that like growing up in that sort of environment? Like, how did you learn those things? How did they teach them?
Well, I guess
Just through osmosis or what?
yeah, so like it's honestly more so now that I realize that I learned it because like at the time, like it's so funny. I was really lucky enough to be like go to a really good school. My parents shipped me out of Waiuku, hour and a half bus ride every morning and every evening.
Yeah.
To go to a school called Strathallan.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
out
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
really great school, was
Yeah.
amazing, was so good for me. Was a stretch to get there, you know, like it's expensive and it was a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Now for me, I was like, cool, you're sending me to an expensive school.
Yeah.
And my view was like, well, we're poor compared to everybody else here.
Yeah.
Like this sucks. Like, oh, this is so hard. And now I'm like, shut up, you tool. But like, that's probably where I kind of learned it was realizing that like they had to hustle so hard to get me there and they were doing it for a reason. Like, what was that reason? You know, like I tell the story sometimes of like, if I was slacking, which happens as a kid,
Yep.
my dad isn't about that. And so I'd come home to like my term deposit slips on my bed, reminding me of how much that term costs.
Yeah.
Just because like it wasn't easy for them and it was like a big deal. And like when people call it like child abuse sometimes when I tell that story, and I'm like, no, like reminding your kid, like it wasn't an easy thing. It was an expensive thing to do. And so I guess like how I learned that was like by them literally just throwing me into it. I didn't know that much different, but I realized quite quickly how hard they had to work to get to these types of scenarios and to get me there and how much that did stretch them. I was like, okay, like there has to be some merit behind this because I also, on the other hand of it, see plenty of families back in Waiuku and where I'm from that aren't doing what they're doing. So I'm like, okay, there has to be some kind of like middle ground here. And I've always been, I guess probably from them wired in a way where like at kindergarten, what do you want to be? CEO. Come on. A kindergarten kid doesn't think like that.
No.
I'm obviously being pushed in that direction. And we always talked about like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was like New York,
Interesting.
glass
Yeah.
office, penthouse,
Love
like
it.
top of the,
Love
what are you
it.
going to do? Not
We
sure.
must
Run a
have watched the
business.
same
I'm just going
shows.
to,
Yeah.
exactly.
I love it.
Exactly. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where it all came from. It was just like genuinely upbringing. Like it
That's
was just
cool.
always that mindset.
Do you like that term deposit slips were interesting to me for me. I read that in the article that you had in the Herald about that. You like I think it was part of the Apprentice article.
Yeah.
But it made me think like was money something quite openly spoken about in the house, or at least the value of things and where money comes to play?
I think, I would assume so because
that's not normal, right?
no, and I think that probably is a privilege in that sense.
Yeah.
Like, and kind of how it happened as well. Both my parents come from like a family of 6, family of 7, quite not well off, you know, like definitely weren't rolling in it by any means. And they both, out of like all their families, they've got successful brothers and sisters, but they've really managed to make it work. Like they're thriving on their own and genuinely on their own, but like almost just as like a duo. And so I guess like they, more so than myself, understood the value of here's where we were, here's where we are. Even when I was growing up, we were only in the middle. They've really reached their peak now. You know, like, and so I've kind of watched them reach their peak and realized that like, without probably actively talking about it, I did know what it felt like to be like, no, you can't have like this for lunch day, you can't go on the school trip, etc. But also at the same time watched it grow, watched that if I earned this, I could help out here, or as their money grew as well, watched how like that expanded it. So I think again, probably without like forcefully talking about it, it naturally became like just the hustle, like watching them literally just do it every single day, time in and time out.
I wonder if that's a thing, hey, like, because there isn't a lot of people whose family talk about money quite as openly. Like I've found in time, I found that it's like actually it's quite the exception for people to do that. Like my partner Claire's family, like
really?
not at all. And I mean, they're a bit different now these days, but even now, like we openly talk about money. You've seen me talk about I tell the whole world, like we'll show on Friday everyone the P&Ls in the business.
Yeah.
And one of the interns like this morning was like, I felt like that was illegal, like what you showed me. Like
it's a crazy world when you start to like peel that back out.
And so I think that's quite an interesting thing for people to hear, because people don't talk about money enough.
Yeah.
And I said to you, like, we've had people on the show like who just won't open up about the money because they're too reserved and worried.
And like I said to you then, the way that I view that now is that when I was trying to on the come up, and probably maybe you're right, maybe coming from a world where it was a little bit more openly talked about, to like this business world, even just Instagram, all this types of thing, it was so hidden and like not spoken about that I just thought that was how it kind of had to be. So I then went back the other way until I luckily had some amazing people around me that did the exact same thing. We were very big on like, everyone in the room read the P&L within reason, obviously. But like, I don't want you to think that the reason you're not getting a pay raise is because I'm withholding all this money. No. We're in this together. Like, let's go. Like, money makes this world go around. And if anything, like when you're starting a business, knowing like, I don't know, like on Instagram, if someone asks me, knowing how much that costs to set up is such an important part of the next step. Like, what do I actually need as a buffer to do this? Or like, how did you actually get there? Well, I'll tell you what, I did 40 weddings to buy the next camera. That's how long it took, you know, like there's no cheap road to that. Like, yeah, and I think that's a really important part. Maybe I didn't even realize how lucky I was.
No, yeah, I think it is something that people who speak about money openly don't realize, because for you, and I didn't, right? Like I only really learned this in the last, like pretty much since I met Claire, because I'd like openly talk about my salary and stuff, and I'd talk to her parents, and like and then Claire's like, oh, like that's pretty uncomfortable. Like
people even hide their salaries.
Yeah.
Buzzy.
Yeah.
I love it.
People that's really not normal.
I guess true. Like I'm that person in my friend group that's always like asking. I'm like, I want to know, because not in like I want to figure out what you're taking home. I want to know in a sense of like, what do we do to get you to the next one?
Exactly.
That's exciting.
That's it. That's the way I think of it too. But there are a lot of people who just don't do this.
Yeah.
And so, which is, before we move forward, I want to talk about that, because you brought up the word privilege a few times there. And I think that is an important thing to talk about, where like, you came from a similar background as me. Like, we both grew up in South Auckland. I grew up in Manarewa. I didn't go to Strathallan, but I went to Rosehill.
Oh, my mum went to Rosehill. Two are the same.
Strathallan just opened like my last year.
It was so fresh, eh?
Yeah. So like there was a couple of people from my year who like, you know, left and went to Strathallan when it first opened. But it's that like, it's those, like my parents were the same as yours. Like my mum's one of 11, my dad's one of 6. They came from like poor neighborhoods, and they sort of built themselves out of it. And look, they've had some ups and downs. Dad was like I said off camera, Dad's a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's like boom and bust all his whole life. And when we had our booms, that was great. And then we had a few busts that were pretty bad. But the last big bust that he had, we had already left home and gone on. And now he's
a little bit. You can watch it from a distance a little bit.
Yeah. But I do think that is some privilege to have. And I think though, maybe what I learned now, more so than anything, was the privilege that I had the parents together at the whole time.
Yeah, same.
And seeing that partnership.
100%.
And which leads me on to a little bit, like, one, I want you to comment on that, but two, like, leading into you and your partner, and that, like, what I've read, what I watch on your socials, like, you guys are, like, super close. And what it seems like is your relationship's very similar to mine and Claire's.
Yeah.
But, like, you and I are the ones who are just out doing dumb shit all the time to try and make money, and they like just look after us.
They're the stable, the stable background. 100%.
Keeps us done.
I think the cool thing about the privilege chat was something that I've grown into, and I'm like kind of proud of that, because I didn't know that, and I would always be like, no, like I'm self-made, like I did this myself, like, and also like not ask, like that was that early stage of entrepreneurship where you're like, I'm not asking for help, I'm not getting any more shareholders in, like I'm doing everything myself, and I am self-made, and I am this. And then like the more that I mean, to be fair, Kylie Jenner helped me with this, where like everyone ripped her apart for saying like self-made, and I was like, I get that she's not, but like if she genuinely didn't, I mean, I know that she's not, but like genuinely didn't get a handout, to me, I'm like, is that not self-made? And what it helped me realize was like, well, no, because self-made can mean so many different things. Like, let's all be real, she's had an insane kickstart, but still built a huge thing off it. Absolutely. But it had an insane kickstart. And that's what made me start to realize, like, even if I didn't realize it at the time because it wasn't $100,000 payout to start the business, everything that I had, my parents being together this whole time, every like, rough day at school, or honestly, like there has been twice in my entire business journey where I've had to go to dad and be like, I can't pay my staff.
Yeah.
I need you to bail me out $2,000.
Yeah.
Like this sucks. I'm really sorry. It's my pride being swallowed right now, but like, that's an insane privilege. What happens if you couldn't do that?
Exactly.
So I fully understand now that I've like baked that in, and I'm like, nah, sweet as. Like what I've managed to do from it, awesome.
Yeah.
But like understanding that I was super lucky and super fortunate, and was able to have the mindset that was able to turn that luck into something worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the same for me. Like I know that we grew up pretty poor, and like I definitely couldn't go to my parents now. Maybe like 10 years ago I could have went to my parents' house to bail me out. But these days I know I couldn't. And actually like I'm super stoked that I am in that position, because it puts you back against the wall a little bit.
I've just reached that bit now where I'm like, okay, no, it's on my own now. But it feels good. It feels like it's like, okay, sweet, you helped me get to that point.
Exactly. And like my privilege was like being able to go to my dad when we started the business and say to him, can you come work for me? I'll pay you.
Yeah.
But he's like retired, like didn't want to work. But it was a good point because like I could fire him with a second's notice.
100%.
Because he's like, I don't want to be here anyway.
All of that, is like literally like in and out, like being able to move. My dad's an engineer, a builder, right? Like every Whitening Co studio that I've built, I have maxed out those hours. Paid him.
Nice.
But like nowhere near what I would have paid, right? Or anything like being able to, while you're here, can you do this? Like so many things like that you're right. Honestly, to me, I write them off, but that's a huge privilege.
Yeah. Do you have siblings as well?
I do. I have a younger sister.
Oh, yeah. What's she do?
She works at the Whitening Co.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she is a teeth whitening technician at the Ponsonby studio.
How old is she?
23.
Nice. And what is that, like, is she just working with you now until she figures it out? Like, what's her goals? Is she the same as you, or are you very different personalities?
No, we're quite different personalities.
Yeah.
She's like, I compare her to my mum a lot. They're very headstrong women, like super just like, I mean, a great way to describe it is that I've never worried about her in this world, like at all. Boys, no matter what, like just anything, I'm like, she's fine. Like she's a tough girl, which is really cool. And also, like there are parts where I'm like, sometimes that would be difficult because like I'm non-stop in everybody's faces, with social media, with The Apprentice, with all these things like coming up and like parents wanting to talk about it. I do genuinely think that, and I'm like, that must be not like the easiest thing to do. Yeah. She is the most like chill, supportive, like, go, like literally just doesn't mind. And that means it, I think the reason I felt that way is because if it was me, I'd be like jealous. I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, no, I need to do, whereas like she's so chill. So that proves that like we are quite different in some circumstances, but she's an incredibly happy human, like is so chill with life, is now fallen in love with like teeth and dental and whatnot. So like might end up going down the dental route, which is like kind of cool. We like open that up for it, but for now, literally, it's just like loving being a teeth whitening technician.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So tell me a bit more then about. So we came from these places. We understand that there's some privileges that come with that, and we deal with it as we need to deal with it. But tell me about like Oliver, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about this relationship with Oliver. How long have you guys been together now?
7 years.
7 years. Oh yeah, it's the same as Claire and I. And how does that dynamic work? What does he do, and how's that dynamic working?
God, he's like a saint.
Yeah.
I just didn't know that these people existed. No, I count my blessings for sure. Like I think probably
because we're not easy people to.
Oh no, easy people, lives, businesses, like all of it. I'm like, you can walk, like it's all good. Like I get it. Yeah. Early days, especially because like when like you're trying to start these things up, it's cooked. Like it is. I can say fucked, right? It is absolutely fucked. Like, I remember there was days where I was like, I don't blame you. Like, I wouldn't want to be here. Like, it's all good. But literally, like, probably out of the 7 years, probably 5, I've literally come home every single day to a dinner on the table, and I wouldn't have eaten. There've been plenty of days where I just wouldn't have eaten, worked into the night, like. And there are times where like it's even been so hard that I won't be able to eat with him. He'll just like walk the dinner up to my office and like walk away because he just knows that that's easier. But like that to him acts of service, right? That to him was like, as long as I can do that to help. Whereas mine, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that I'm doing that to you. And he was like, no, that's like, if I can, like, he can't help in those other ways. And so like, this is his way to like do that. Plus he's also like, his job is that he's the national ops manager for St. John, Auckland, and like so he runs a big job and is a very caring human. Like his entire career, he's either been head lifeguard at Muriwai Beach or a St. John paramedic. So like his job is caring for people. I'm like, I just don't get why you do that. I'm like, no, wow, that's a lot of work for other people. And so I've like we balanced in a really good way. Whereas like he didn't necessarily come from a background of like the hustle culture or like trying to make this next and then this next and then this next. It was just very loving and chill, and that's like what it was. And then vice versa, they've kind of like really balanced out. He just didn't have that kind of drive before me, but now he does, and he's like more so in on it with me. I don't think he's necessarily like wanting to run out and build a business himself, but like where we've come from that start to now is like he's my ear. He's back into the accounts. Like he's everything for accounting wise for like two of my businesses now. Because he's ops. He's got this analytical brain. It works so well. And our dynamic is balanced so well that it's never like a chore. It's never like, oh, business not like pleasure related, like all that kind of, it just works super well. Cool. We're very open about it. And he's just like calm when I'm not. And so that's like probably the cherry of it all. I don't know how he does it, but he just like stays calm during it all. And I'm like, well, it's kind of hard to stay calm.
Yeah. How do you find it? Like something that probably like, so we're very similar, Claire and I, exactly the same as you. Like Connor knows, like Claire brings me lunch every day. She like brings me dinner, brats, everything, right? But she, the main thing we probably run into as a couple, our main issue, and if we would call it a problem, is when we cross each other's lines. Like when I jump into her lane, trying to do something, or she jumps into my lane. Yeah. Does that happen for you? Like, what's your thing that like you guys have had to talk a lot about? Because like, and the reason I want to bring this up, because creators, we talk to a lot of creators who are often on their own. Yeah. And they struggle with this, like, how do I co-work or live with someone else? Like, what's your thing? Is it similar to us?
Ours is like, I guess, goals and like where it wants it. Like, because I'm very like, well, I know what I want.
Ambition.
Yeah. Well, I know what I want. I don't really like mind if that works for you or not kind of thing. So like now it's a 7-year relationship, a bit different. Like I'm definitely willing to come to terms with that a lot more. But previously, like even friends wise, I can be a bit of a tool to be around in that because I want what I want. Like all good if you want to do what you want to do. Like early days, there probably would have been plenty of time that Oliver would tell you that I like wrote it off because I was like, well, all good if you want to do that. Like I don't compromise, you know, like I'm going for what I'm going for kind of thing. And that's probably still like, again, if you want to call it an issue, the thing that probably carries on in the 7 years, something that I had to like really compromise and learn is that like the goals are together now. Like New York is a great example, you know, like I want to go to New York. When are you leaving your job kind of thing? You know, like that was honestly probably how horrible it came across. Not what I meant, but like kind of, you know? And so that's probably like the biggest is like, learning that not everyone wants exactly what I want and that what everyone calls my drive and my passion and like all that kind of stuff can have a negative effect sometimes, you know, like it's not always what I guess, the relationship wants maybe, and slowing down. I think is probably like the biggest thing.
It's similar to us. I'm the same thing. I'm very much like, oh, this is what we're doing.
Especially when it comes to where the goals are going.
Especially when it comes to like what's funding the lifestyle.
That's probably where I accidentally end up pulling that card and not meaning to, but being like, well, what do you mean? Like that's what's happening. So
exactly. This is what we got to do for paying for stuff. And I mean, it's obviously like, it might come off that we're being pretty brutal like that, but like we're fast tracking the conversation for the podcast. But like it really is that though.
No, totally. But,
And
they get that. Like totally. Like he fully understands that as well. Like
Claire's the same. We got into like a bit of thing when we first went to New York, planning to go. Yeah. And Claire was trying to figure out like, she was like, what are we doing about these visas and all this blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And it was going back and forth. And I was like, why are you bringing this up? Like you're like stepping into my lane.
Like, I can handle it.
This is mine. But the thing that got confused was she takes care of the home, anything home life. I take care of the business. Yeah. But there was this real gray area when New York became home and business. Yeah. And I had to be like, no, like you have to stay the fuck out. Like,
interesting.
As soon as we figured that out, because I didn't realize either. No, but then we were just talking through it, and she was like getting annoyed because I wasn't giving her what she needed. I was like, but I've taken care of it. Like in my head, I was like, what are you on about?
Yeah, it's
like,
a business thing. It has tasks. Yeah.
I just got to tick them off my list.
Yeah.
And anyway, we had a talk, and she was like, okay. Just like you're not going to get to choose what we do for dinner in New York. And I was like, no, like you just put it in front of me.
That's actually, like
take me where I need to go.
Itineraries and all that kind of stuff. Like, I am an organized human, but it's more so that I love being organized, not necessarily having to organize. You know, like I don't mind it, then I'll do it, and I've done it my whole life. Yeah. Up until now I'm like laxed as because I know it will get done. Exactly the same thing. But if I did try to interfere with some kind of trip, etc., I can fully understand that. Like he gets like angsty. Like he'll just be like, oh my God. Yeah. He would never like overrule, but like definitely very like you could tell that's like his thing.
That's funny.
Yeah, the balance is so good though.
Yeah. No, it is good. It's good to see. It's good to see on your socials too. Like you can see you guys are pretty strong.
Well, there's there's that, and there's
Yeah.
the gay thing as well, which
Yeah.
is like I didn't see at all that in a normal world, and if anything, like
Interesting.
at all, honestly,
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, without getting like too soppy about it, but like even like weddings and whatnot, like that was all just so written off in my world because I didn't personally want to have a gay wedding. I didn't want to have a gay relationship. I didn't want to have a gay this and a gay that and all
it.
this kind of thing. But that's because I didn't seen it.
Yeah.
Like in my head, it was like, oh, it has to be this. It has to be this way.
Yeah.
Run around with a rainbow flag on your back kind of thing. But like that's not at all what it is. And I guess what I'm doing now is genuinely just because you get the odd message about it. It's genuinely just trying to be like, it can be completely normal. Understand when you don't want it to be, it doesn't have to be. But like, I just want to show that you can buy a house, you can do your thing. It can be so normal that obviously in my head it's not even a thing, right? But it affects other people more so than we think it does. And so I guess if it's, you know, an internalized homophobe from back in Woku, now seeing that it's like normal, I'm just doing life. And like that to me is like a really big thing. So that's why I try to just like make it look like as normal as possible because it is. And I didn't have that.
So you're saying, just let me, because this is quite interesting to me. So you're saying that like you think the only way you've probably seen gay relationships on social is being like quote unquote like proper gay looking rather than just a normal relationship between two people that can just be normal? Or
not even just gay looking, like genuinely finding a 7+ year gay relationship on socials that was public. I didn't see it that much. In the business world, definitely didn't see it. And then like, I guess just like realizing that honestly, even in New Zealand, I think was probably the biggest one. It's like, I didn't know. We tell the story about there was a movie called Bros that came out like 2 years ago maybe or like a year ago, and it was the first big gay rom-com to get picked up in like a normal mainstream media, right? All got invited to the premiere. It was super exciting. Got to take my friends. I was like, oh, how good. I had a little cry, and I had no idea. Like, I didn't even know that I cared this much about it, but it was because I had never watched a rom-com and realized how that's how everyone else felt.
Got it.
I didn't realize that you guys go, oh yeah, like super relatable. The amount of things that come up in that movie that I was like, that's my life. I was like, holy crap. And so little moments like that, to me, that's what my socials is about. When it comes to, I don't try to make a big deal about it because
you just look like every other couple.
Totally. Like I really try not to do that. But any single time I post him or something around that, it is out the gate. Like people just like flock. Like it is crazy. Both like gays, straights, everybody like just gets so excited to see it like thriving and happy. Everyone's just like, oh my God, that's it. Which is funny because like I know plenty of people on Instagram who when they post their couple, followers go down. You know, like especially if you're a hot chick. You know, it's like they don't want to see that you're taken or anything like that. Whereas like mine is the opposite. People want to know. They're like exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, our relationship's obviously a hetero relationship, but it's the same thing. I always put Claire on my socials whenever you want to boost her numbers.
Let's like bring it up a little bit. 100%. Ollie, stand here.
Yeah, exactly.
Smile.
I find that real interesting, and actually, like, I mean, this is totally off topic for this conversation, but like, one of our good mates and clients, Drew, and his partner Paul, it was one of the things I said to him about 18 months ago. Like, why don't you and Paul aren't on socials? Like, you guys are never together on socials or nothing like this. And he's like, oh, it's just been always from a professional sense. He's never done it. I was like, because before he went out on his own consultancy, he owns a company based out of LA. And I was like, but your whole company's gay. Like, the CEO's gay, the CFO's gay, like all of them. Like, you got 2 lesbians, like 4 gay men.
Isn't that crazy?
And I was like, but you just won't talk about it professionally? And they just wouldn't.
Because of the like, and also how old are they?
Oh, they're in their 40s and one's 50. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Growing up around the idea of like could lose a client over it.
Exactly.
You know, like I've had that mindset. It's obviously changed, but like it's still there.
Yeah.
Like you still like genuinely have to consider it, whether it's like, do I go like balls to the wall or do I just like peel back on it? And so for me, like I had a social page before I decided to tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
Straight social page in theory, right? Like where I had like an octave lower voice. I swear to God, like I probably like really put it on.
That is the best.
And like I was like, what do I do? Like how do I like migrate? Like I was so scared that I just like lose it all because of, as you do in your head, you know, when you're younger. But no,
society tells you to think that way,
and it's massively changed. Like now it's just like kindergarten kids are so used to it, you know, like it's like so good. It makes me so happy that it has changed, even in my like lifespan, watching it change. But no, there is a huge part about that, and it is annoying that many businesses have to be like that.
Yeah.
But like there was so many times where in my head I was like, do I want to be not only the youngest business person in the room, but the youngest gay person in the room? Cool. Like I was just like, that really petrified me. Now I'm like, fantastic. That is the coolest part about me.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I kind of like, it does resonate with me a lot. Like, okay, rather than I'm not gay, but the people that I'm talking about is the like young kids from like South Auckland. I grew up in Manadero and things like that. Like that's the similarity. Like
exactly.
Talking about that a lot, talking about the money and having people go, oh shit, like when I was young, there was no one to look at.
Yeah.
Like there was no one that looked like that.
And honest about it all, right? And like not that it's like too hard or too hard to get to and anything like that. Yeah. I agree. That's why I want to show those like relationships parts being like
that's good.
Fully achievable. Like it's all good.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Maybe we should actually talk about businesses because we've just gone half the podcast and even longer than half the podcast and not even spoken about all of your bloody business ventures. Okay. Just for me, because really, like I've seen you since following you on Instagram. The main ones I see is Whitening Co and the content, the studio stuff, the agency stuff. So tell me the list. What is it? And give me a synopsis of each one.
This is what
I've heard about this little marking on your hand.
So this is how I remember it all.
Yeah. I love it.
I've got like a notes on my phone.
So if you can't see that, that is
just a little tattoo.
Yep.
That was when I thought it was cool to be a serial entrepreneur, and now like 2024 is all about getting rid of them. You know, one would be great.
One good one.
One good one is all you need. Yeah. When I watch people do it now, I'm like, I can't say anything because obviously I was that person, but I'm like, oh, don't do it. Yeah. I'm like, wow, it's a lot of work. Like, no, obviously. I don't regret it because it takes that many to sometimes make that one hit. Obviously,
they're all learnings, right?
Yeah,
and you're still young, so.
So I guess the list went from Colab was the first kind of like launch into it all. Colab was a social media and creative agency.
Yeah,
I thought I was like one of the first in Auckland of its kind, where I wasn't just saying I was a social media manager. I'd go out and take the photos for you. So like the big thing was for like $500 a month. You'd get your entire socials run for you, plus a photo shoot every month.
Yeah.
Because I had a camera and I had one staff and I was like, we can just go out on our lunch break and take some photos. Like it's chill as. And it was great because like in that first year of business in Colab, we made 120 grand.
Nice.
And I was 19 and I thought I was the man. I was like,
you were the man. That's
fantastic.
Awesome.
This is great. Spent every cent of it.
Yeah, of course.
Including the GST.
Oh shit. Oh no.
One thing probably I should have learned more from dad growing up was that. Didn't.
Fuck.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of how that happened. And then from there on, managed to grow it, learned a bit more, asked for help, all that kind of stuff. As I grew, I did the same kind of agency thing that you hear, especially from back in the day, which was thinking I wanted to grow, new person, new clients. Oh, that's not working. New person, new clients, new person, new clients. I grew to 8 before I realized it's not profitable. It just can't. I'm obviously not. Something's missing because the same thing keeps happening. And everyone from the outset thought Colab was amazing. It was a great brand. Like even my staff thought that. Like it was growing at a rapid pace because of the price. Like everything was just really working. And we even had quite a good brand in Auckland for its time, but it was poor.
Yeah.
And it was cash poor, like massively. And so I was doing influencer jobs on the side to prop up being able to pay for it. And like to the point of where I kind of like even lost touch with like the influencer side because I was doing like dog food, I was doing ice cream, I was doing yogurt, I was just doing whatever. I didn't care what it was.
Just need the money.
If anything, like this, the channel was a side thing. I was like, Kennedy NZ can burn right now. I've got to focus on Colab. I didn't care, so I just like did all the one-off posts. This is also 2018, so like one-off posts was still a thing, you know. Like you'd pay someone stupid money to do that, and it was all big brands, you know, like that would just pay. So that's kind of how that happened, and I was pretty much at the point where it was like ready to burn if I couldn't take this next step, which was finding a partner to help me make it work because I couldn't do it on my own anymore and I thought I could. That led into Glass Elephant. So Simon, how much do I want to go into? Simon is a very smart human being. A very, very smart man who was building an agency called Glass Elephant at the time, or the Magnitude Group, and he needed creative, and I was creative, but I needed processes and systems and work, etc. So that's where that kind of came in. It started off with a 50% sale, and then it quickly turned into a 100% sale. But the deal was that I didn't make any money from this. This is important because I think people thought that I was rolling in it from 20 or 21 when I sold it, and I wasn't. I only had Colab for 4 years before I'd migrated this business, and what the deal was is that I got to keep all 8 staff, move them to Glass Elephant. and I got to become a creative director instead of a CEO.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me.
Yeah.
I missed every single part of being creative, being clients, being all that. All I was doing was HR, payroll, and like everything I hated about it. And I was like, wait, is this what business is? Like, this is shit. This is so bad. And so 50% became 100% so fast because of that. Because the second I got a little taste of being a creative director, I was like, oh, it's all woken up for me. I don't need to be the biggest boss man, or if I can still own it and get someone to be that person, like that's all good. And I think that was a big pride thing to swallow, realizing that I didn't want to be that. And I look at so many business owners like that, and I'm like, you're way more suited to do this role, but like it's like this thing that you want to be like the CEO. And I wish that people taught me that sooner. But it's because I'd always thought I had that mindset, you know, from day one that I was going to be the top dog. It's horrible. I mean, you get it. Like it's pretty hard. So like, that honestly was a pretty freaking cool year. That first year of Glass Elephant, I became a shareholder. So I sold Collab for shares in Glass Elephant. That's kind of how we made that work.
Good. Love it.
Yeah. And it was amazing.
That's a good option. People don't realize that it can be an option.
Yeah, it was a fantastic option because what I saw was everyone's like, oh, but like we still got them valued and we still did it like in a technically a fair way. But the biggest thing for me was like the astronomical amount that I'm going to learn in this like 1 year is going to be like, if I go off, sweet. Or if this is the one thing, fantastic. At the time, I probably thought it was going to be like the one thing that was going to make the world, as you kind of do when you go into business. But yeah, so we did that for a good couple of years. It was a lot. It was really big. We scaled insanely well. We had one particular client that like really we went on profit share with. It was like kind of our like thing at the start. We wanted to do what brands needed and not be the one that just kept taking money from it. So like, we had about 6 that went really early days on a profit share margin. Yeah, it was amazing to start with until you make a lot of money and then shit just hits the fan. Every person in that contract becomes like, how dare you? And it's like, well, we made you all the, So there's like a big factor around this one particular client that kind of like absolutely made this business worth in the first year, I think 12 million.
Cool.
So awesome. And then we scaled. We scaled to match that growth, which is probably like the hardest decision, but also sadly the worst decision that we made looking back, but like how you to think that. It was during 2020. Yeah, it was during COVID. We had a product in the US that was like a gifting product that was the gift of the season and also was a gift that you could be sentimental with and buy it from the comfort of your own home, and hugely scalable. And so this product flew off the shelves, like took off to the point of like, we were during COVID, we flew the founder over to America to like find factories just to like buy them, to be like, you now have to only make this product. Like that was how quickly everything needed to run. They were doing $1 million days in December and it was just fantastic and it was all profit share.
Yeah, nice.
So that went really, really well to the point we had 80 staff across the world at Glass Elephant. Yeah. My one creative team was like 29 at this time.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was super crazy. It was like really big. Like we thought we were big dog and it was working because every other client that came on board, we just showed them this and then they were like, sign us up. Sounds great. And that's kind of how that worked. And it worked really well. And like the magnitude group model was really clever. So we had 3PL, logistics, creative, websites, content, digital. Like we had this brand maker, you know? And that's kind of what led us into the next part, which was like, let's build internal brands. Why become a client when we can just build them ourselves? So because I was the creative director, I designed and built a couple of these internal brands, which then led me to become a shareholder in these brands. So I kind of got like a brand factory. That's what I want to point out, to be like, I didn't make every single one of these financially. It's important to note that because you can't do that. I'd have some kind of back pocket somewhere otherwise, you know? I pulled out a Glass Elephant when I knew I could no longer do 80 hours for the same salary that I was. I think I fell into the trap of realizing that I was no longer actually a shareholder and I was just working for the same salary that hadn't progressed in a good couple of years. And I'm a big goals person. I wrote down my goals and reverse engineered them and was like, well, if I genuinely in 2 years' time want to be making this, I can't do that here. And that was the hardest decision ever because I had to leave a company that I thought we'd built. I'd always been in the P&L meetings. I'd always thrown around that co-founder title. Like it was a big thing, but I was like, I'm just doing this for someone else. Like this isn't my dream anymore. I didn't enjoy this part. It's not at all where I want to be, even though I thought it was going to be the $100 million why. Like that's what we had always got in our head, that's what it was going to be. I think the curtain just like pulled off a little bit. I was probably like 3rd or 4th to leave. And it kind of it kind of went from there. Like it kind of like pulled back. It just was it was also a really hard time to be an agency. And yeah, we just saw it kind of like pull back and pull back and pull back. Yeah. And so I was super grateful for my decision. Obviously I made it somewhat early, but pretty much the biggest thing out of it all was that I just needed to be back being an entrepreneur again, what I was good at and what I was used to. So that led into Whitening Co. Whitening Co is a creative marketing partner. And the reason I did that was because I didn't want an agency. In theory, you know, that guy, like I don't want an agency building an agency, but I just wanted to make sure that I have between 5 to 10 clients at any given time. There's like a maximum cut there, and that's because I'm going to be sitting in your board meetings. I want to be in your C-suite meetings. Like I want to be your partner there, because I found out that there was no way that I could make my creative like dreams come to life if you were just going to be looking at me month by month. You know, like I needed to like envision this being like a long-term thing, and people picked up on it. And I think that's what I have to thank from Glass Elephant massively, was that before Glass Elephant, I couldn't charge this, and I wasn't a creative director. All of a sudden I'm now a creative director, and I just started saying these things to these brands, and they were like, 1,000% that's what we need. We don't want to hire a creative director or a marketing manager in-house, but we want to have one that's like there that we can fire at any time if we wanted to, but I get a very good pay from that. So like that was kind of where that all kind of came from.
Cool.
So far working really well.
Nice.
Love it. And then the Whitening Co has been hustling in its background the entire time. So Whitening Co was built from Collab. And it was a drop shipping company. I built it to be a drop shipping company, but I studied product design at uni. And so within the first year of this drop shipping company, it had an impeccable brand. And I was like, well, I'm a bit more attached to this than probably what I thought I was meant to be. And then got so into teeth. Like, so more into smiles than I thought. I had people crying, being like, I can now smile because of you, like all this stuff. And it became a little bit more of a why than originally first thought. So about 2 years into it, I spoke to my other shareholders. There was 5 of us, and I was like, "This is something that I really want to do." So one of them dropped off. We buckled down on the more of that. We kind of expanded and we built the stores. So building a studio was huge. It was a really big step, obviously. Bricks and mortar, like what the fuck? Why?
Fuck yeah. From a drop shipping.
Yeah, from a drop shipping company. It was a huge risk, but I just was so sick of people asking me, does it work? It's all I get asked is the FAQ to the days. Does it work? And I'm like, would I build a store where you could come in for an hour and then leave and tell me your honest opinion straight there, and then if I didn't believe that it worked? And a lot of teeth whitening brands on the internet would not do that because they know. So like that was where that kind of came from. And it ended up being bigger than the like e-commerce side of things. Yeah, buzzy because it was instant, which I quite quickly realized that like, this was a 2-week type scenario, whereas people would pay double if it meant that they could walk away with the results right now. And so that's where I guess the whole evolution of the brand kind of came from. Got really into it, have been running it as a client of my businesses for a very long time. So that's kind of how I made any money out of it. Didn't pull a cent from it other than it was like an agency thing that we ran.
Got it.
And then, that's kind of what this, I guess, next big thing is that like over the Christmas break, we've done some fucking really big digging and decided to risk everything again. I've paused New York and I've just bought 100% of the Whitening Co.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so
I didn't realize.
Congrats. That's just the news that I haven't told anyone.
That's the news that you haven't told anyone. Got it.
So like,
no wonder I didn't know.
Yeah,
that's
so hopefully
awesome.
you didn't know.
Congrats, that's fantastic.
It's a huge thing. So that's a big Ollie and I decision. New mortgage had to come out to literally do this. I know what's next for the Whitening Co, and that's why I've done it. I know that in the next year I won't be able to afford to do it again. So it was kind of like now or never. And it was a huge another risk after not really making any money off it yet. But pretty much because of what I've just been through, I've now got my first $1 million valuation. And it's led me to be like, okay, sweet. Well, it's the first time I've ever owned a company 100% myself.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, which is like a pretty cool feeling. So we've paused the New York travels.
Yeah, okay, interesting. There's so much there.
Sorry,
I need to unpack. And I probably
cut
don't have
any
enough
of that
time.
that you need to. Sorry.
No. That was great. No, it was really good. I'm glad you went into it so much depth. I got a couple of questions, and you can tell me if you want to answer this or not. But I think it'll be quite interesting to give some context. So, like, okay, so with the Glass Elephant, there's some bits that I was probably it was too much almost for me to understand. So, when you left, when you pulled out, was that pulling out as an employee but still an owner, or pulling out completely, selling
as
everything?
an employee first?
First, cool.
I've just bought out as a shareholder.
Okay, so then they've just bought you out of that.
So I guess technically you could say I did that earlier this year, but like it all kind of went final recently. But like I was nothing. So
Yeah,
on paper, no. Like I probably pulled out in about February this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And when you say February 2023.
Yes.
Yeah,
sorry.
cool.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Good. Just checking. And okay. And then so when you bought this, do you mind saying, can you share how much you had to pay, or is that too confidential still?
I would love to.
Yeah.
What can't I about that? No, I think I can.
Or how much, even if it's like a range, so like it's kind of blurry.
Yeah, like
anyway.
$500,000.
Okay, crazy.
Yeah.
And that's how much you believe in it, though, of where you can take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
What gave you that confidence?
Oh, far out. I don't know.
Because that's fucking huge
yeah.
gamble.
I think, no, it was. It's been, when I said the huge confidence, it's taken me a lot to get there.
Yeah,
like it really
of
was.
course.
Like it was like I think I've always, because it's been like my baby and our front and center, and everything mattered, right? Having an Instagram and a brand is really hard because no matter what or who the other shareholders were, it didn't matter. I was the person, you know? So like every time a light was faulty, they don't go to customer service, they come to me to tell me, you know? Like I became and that's why it like really tied, if I was like, if I'm going to do it, I may as well double down. So, and then I got to like, I guess use it as a way to like, probably like as a test dummy. I got to like bring out all my creative ideas without a client saying no. Yeah. And then what would happen is I'd be like, look, I tested it and I tried it and it worked. Do you want to do it? And then they would. Cool. And so that's kind of how like the Whitening Co was like a test dummy really. And then I did a couple of really good things that made it work. One of them as the group we did. One of them was moving to Ponsonby. That studio already, and it's been there since September, has already made more than what the studio's made, and they were there for like 2-3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I had a Takapuna one and an Eden Terrace one, and just that changed. I do believe that the brand's evolved a lot. It's more known, and all that kind of plays in. So studio was a big...
But locations are important too.
Huge,
Ponsonby.
literally, and it's changed the game for us. There's that. I released a toothbrush. My products previously are very good. But they're not revolutionary in any way. And when I say revolutionary, I know it's just a toothbrush. But I made a couple things. I literally just, this is how I design products, by the way. I literally just get it and I go, what's everything that I hate about this product? Cool. And then I buy all the competitors, whether that's the right thing to say or not, I don't know. But I just buy the, and I go, best thing. And I just designed it based off that. And so I just was like, well, electric toothbrushes are really important. If you don't know this, to clean your teeth, very important. And no one takes it traveling because it's like an admin as shit thing to take with you. So I gave a travel case with every toothbrush and made the battery last 3 months. And so from one charge, you can last 3 months. And that's the biggest like rhetoric with it all, you know? Next was like, oh, it doesn't do this and it like no tongue scraper and it doesn't charge well. And, and so I just fixed everything. And the second that I launched it, I was like, I just overhyped the shit out of it. I was like, I didn't care what I looked like, what I did. I was just like, I'm releasing the Apple of toothbrushes. Like I was like, this is, and I just did that confidence thing. Like it just went like so hard to the point of I was getting text messages from like my mum's friends being like, what has your son done to my mouth? And I'm like, okay, we'll use that as an ad. Like people just became like obsessed with this toothbrush. And so that was one of the bigger changes in the sense that it made the brand quite, you can bring it up. It made the brand kind of a bit more like dynamic. It wasn't just, you're selling the before and after photos that everyone sees. It's like, oh, he's going to evolve. Like he's going to do more with it, et cetera. And I, like I said, I know it's just a toothbrush, but what that led from that was like, oh shit, the brand can do more. It can be this. Whereas previously to that, I had products in mind, but like we were kind of pretty set. We had the 3 products that you need for teeth whitening. It was like kind of done. And now I've got like a line of 7 that are yet to come out, you know, like toothpaste, mouthwash, everything to kind of follow on with that. And quite quickly realized that if I want to sell this, which I do, this is my goal, was to sell the Whitening Co. It has to have a full product suite. And so I get to dedicate time to kind of like, going through all that. So I guess, those were the reasons that I kind of like fell into being like, this, it has to work. I've got to have the confidence to buy this thing because I'm the one who's kind of like done those changes and made the difference. The hardest part of that whole decision to come to terms with was realizing that through the valuation, we've built $1 million brand, and realizing that like, let's say I had just less than half before this, realizing that I was just going to pretty much risk more than what I already own, whilst my other shareholders walk away with like this cash that we've finally made from the business sale, and I'm not a part of that. If anything, I'm losing the money. And so that was like probably the hardest term to come with, is like every other business that I've had, no, not every other business, but like the agency side, I've been able to make money, you know, based off that. This every cent gets poured back into it. So that was the hardest decision. But in doing so, value of a product being sold, as I'm sure you understand that, the astronomical markup on something like that is out the gate. So quite quickly I realized like to try to sell Continent Co, even like the Attention Seeker, a hard task to do.
Yeah.
Try to sell the Whitening Co,
Yeah.
almost so easy that I've had offers from now. I was like, okay, so I'm onto something, and this is might be finally the one that might do it. And so that's why 2024 is about pulling back on everything, like selling out of everything else and doubling down on Continent Co.
Okay, I've got 2 more questions I want to finish on. So the first one, I want to go through the process of doing this, right? So first of all, you've got a brand, you decided to make a new product. Mm-hmm. You went and said everything wrong with what a toothbrush is.
Yeah.
And then you went and brought all the other ones and said, these are all the good things.
Yeah.
Okay, now you got that information.
Yeah.
Now what the fuck do you do? Like, how do you actually do this? Like, how would someone who's got a following, who's got some people who go, they want to build a product and they've figured out exactly what they want to make, what do they then do? Because
that's such a good question.
That's simple, right?
No, it's not that simple. To be fair, this one product took me 2 years, but
that's good to know.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of things in that. One, which is probably back to my previous point, I was trying to do so many other things and so many other businesses that this product did take 2 years. It could have taken probably a year, but that's also really important to know. Like, to do this in less than a year would be very impressive, or you've done it wrong, because I was no longer building a dropshipping company. What you learn in product design and whatnot is like empathy, efficacy, and all that type of stuff. I had to experience 6 samples of our eBrush and then use it for an extended period of time. Imagine if you only used it for 2 weeks and then you put it onto the market. I was shit scared about that. And then again, touching on that fact that I was the customer service, if I release something that's not going to be good, they're just going to tell me straight away. And so I had, which I'm so grateful for now, but I've got this like thing on my back that's like a target. Try to make a bad product and we'll figure it out, you know? So like, I was like, okay, I had this really drive to be like, this is going to be like superior. Cool. And I was like, how am I going to make a toothbrush superior? So did it that way, found all those bits and pieces. How do you go about it from there is finding an insanely good partner. Now, it took me a really long time.
Interesting.
It's still to go through it, like the Alibaba model is still totally fine. What I find really was like a little hack is that doing it through there is a fantastic starting point, but annoy them. Ask so many questions to suppliers, try to like make things that they can't do, like push the boundaries and don't just settle for what they if they say, no, we can't do this, you say why, or like, how many is it going to take me to do this, and push it, because really quickly, that's why you see so many of the same products in the market all the time, is because they just choose what's already a part of the catalog. Of course, the supplier is going to do that because that's going to make them so much more money. So what I found is that like they'll pass me off because I'm too hard to deal with, and they'll be like, he wants too much, etc. But before doing that, they give me new names. These names you cannot find on Alibaba.
Okay, interesting.
I haven't yet been to China yet, but I can't wait to meet these guys because these guys have been like my guys since pretty much the start of it now. But for a new product like a toothbrush, different people. And I did the exact same model and it worked again, where I had all these changes and all these things I wanted to do. You message on WeChat or whatever it is, and they just pass you. They go, oh, well, my mate from across the road, he might be able to help you. Literally like that sometimes.
I love it.
And that's how it kind of worked. And so I just got to the point where I had really great teams. In particular, there's like 2 buyers that are really good over there. Obviously, they can help me translate, which is a really important thing, and get me better deals. But get me exactly what I wanted, which was probably the kicker. Is like, if you're going to lead in with a product and you really want it, hold strong and do that, because I created something exactly like how I wanted to. Within reason, without making 10,000 units, because I couldn't afford that. There are still things I'd like to do better, but I can't afford that yet. So then learning, that's probably another thing, learning that to launch a product now and know that there's probably 3 or 4 iterations to come. That's cool. It's never going to be dead on perfect, but it's perfect for what the audience is. Release it for a year, get that feedback, and then make a second iteration.
Got it.
And so I've done that with the teeth whitening kit. We're on to number 2 now. And I've already got all that feedback over the last 2 years of selling that number 2. And I'll do the exact same thing again and kind of learn from there. So it's a completely customer-driven experience, the Whitening Co. And it proves we've literally got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reviews now, especially on Google and whatnot, all 5-star.
Nice.
Literally every single one of them. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool experience to know that like all of that work has been worth it in the end. And and I guess it's now like kind of giving me the confidence to be like, well, here's 7 more now. Like I can do it. It's easier.
Great. I love it. And then my last question is a little bit about your socials. So you've obviously got your personal brand that you've been building for a long time now. And tell me, like, you touched on it earlier, but like...
It dropped to 12.7.
Oh, from what?
12.8.
Oh, oh, mate. Ours always goes through
I know, but that was the first time I've seen it drop to that. Damn it.
I hate that.
Anyway, sorry about you.
But just in terms of socials, like personal brand especially, like you touched on a little bit before, like how important has that been as part of your journey to make sure that your socials have like always kicked on?
Oh, it's the only thing, man.
Yeah.
Like I owe every bit of my business success to social media. And like, I'm not saying that you can't do it without it.
Yeah.
That was my leg up for sure. But before Whitening Co, it was collab, and I would just say to brands, do you want me to do what I've done on mine to yours?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, yeah.
Yep.
Like, it was such an easy decision because I could prove that I'd done it before.
Yeah.
It was like bringing a CV, you know? And so the idea of, I guess, crafting from... I just don't want to, like, because I don't necessarily like to call myself an influencer, but came from that world, grew it that way, and honestly played the influencer world and game, not because I don't like it, but I played it almost up. The more that I posted about brands, the more that I talked on my stories and acted like I had this life, which I do, but like, you know how people go like, oh, they're that guy that's like talking like they're an influencer kind of thing. The more that I did that, the more that people, whether they were following me to dislike me or share it or do it or whatever, it worked and it reached more people. And so I got really just addicted to like, even if it was bad, I just got really into the fact that if I said something online, 6,000-7,000 people were going to know about it. And so quite quickly when that became a product and I was seeing that I was selling people's hoodies, like my mates' hoodies and things like that, I'd sell like 15 hoodies off like a link, and I was like, why am I not doing this for me? You know? And so that's kind of how that kind of came about. I guess it's a very different world now because I grew in a time where it was a little bit easier to grow. And I also had a niche, and my niche was photography. I'd post photos and my work and like show off my life, and that was enough. It's now not enough. And so I've grown with social media, and I've like learned not just through video, but through personality. And I think it's probably the biggest thing that changed my world was that realizing that when I did the ads, but I did an ad that I was very Kennedy and not how the brand wanted me to do it, I would fuck up. I would say the word wrong. I would be silly. And the more that I posted that, my socials grew. Dead on. And so it's now second nature to me. This is the 8th year that I've done this. And probably for the last 5, I've been on my stories every single day. I've got a rule of 10. I have to post 10 stories a day at a minimum. I don't think I've ever told anyone that, but I just default now by do it. There'll be obviously weeks that I have off around The Apprentice and stuff like that, but I've literally been online as a face every single day for that long. Now, people go, you're so lucky. Did you turn up every single day to your job 7 days a week for 5 years? No, you didn't. No. Shut up. Like that's where my view of that comes from. I get it. It's social media and it's so different to so many other jobs. And it's nothing, like you can't even really compare it. But that was how I did it. And someone goes like, oh, you know, it's because you've got design or it's because you can do this, da-da-da. No, the Whitening Co, etc. grew because I would not stop shoving it down people's throats. I talked about it every single day. I took people along the journey and that's how it genuinely worked. And so in my opinion, social media is the only way I've built what I've built. I owe so much of it to it. And now it's just about continuing to make sure I evolve with it because it changes, like, as you know, lickety split. And I guess that's probably like my new hurdle is like learning with it kind of thing, but realizing that no matter what, it's always going to have a place in my business.
I love that.
Tenfold.
Can I ask them, do you run ads with these guys, with this profile? Does this run ads or how much, what's this split from paid and organic? It's like spend wise on effort?
So only... That's a really good question because only in the last year and a half have I ever done ads for the Whitening Co. It was all organic.
Okay, cool.
Which is like, that was my flex.
And
nice. So when I was sitting in like the, you know, agency paid advertising world, my whole thing was that I was always the creative director harping on about brand, harping on about like, you know, do those things, like do it, etc. And if you can click on Reels and scroll down a little bit, like 2 scrolls, this is like the perfect example for me, the Black Friday thing, right? So this here, pause that. Up a little bit. Sorry, just here. So we all know how hard it is to get attention during during Black Friday. It costs a lot, and this is literally my proof is in the pudding. Is that like there was no way that I could run an ad and not spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get anywhere near that type of views. It just was not possible when everyone's creating so much noise on social. Now, this is my problem with brands these days: is they're Facebook brands. They're not brands. And that's such a huge driving like pull away factor from someone who wants to buy it. Like, what if an ad doesn't work anymore? Like, and it happens, right? We've seen it happen where businesses can bankrupt because of it. So what I did here was I released a video saying, "Please share, help my small business that got vandalized last night. Please share it around." And
I didn't see this.
Yeah, it got 120,000 views and it got 50,000 views overnight, like really, really quickly. to the point of it got really intense that I had to post the following video quite quickly afterwards because I got really scared. I got people tagging me. Because it was fake. I staged this. It's an artist. I've paid for it. Yeah, and the next reel that I released only a few hours later, it was meant to be the next day. The strategy was like in the following days was me posting the video, which was, oh, by the way, it says Black Friday week. Haha, like I pulled this off on you. And my whole thing about this was it cost me $600 to do this, to reach.
That's fantastic. That's such a good one.
Like 180,000 people for the 2 videos together. It cost me $600. I paid $400 to get the entire front of my building wrapped in a clear film so that no one could see that I could just pull this off afterwards. And then I paid the artist $200 and I said, make yourself look like a tagger if you can. And it freaking worked. I had people messaging me being two ways. Good. One, messaging me to buy to support. That's when I had to call it. I was like, okay, now I'm lying. And then so many people who are brand new to the brand just absolutely loved what I did and purchased to support in that circumstance. And I don't do anything else for Black Friday. I was
That's
like,
so
sweet.
fucking good. Hey? Yeah.
I know. That's people commenting. The comments like, I thought it was Kennedy until I saw the shoes. And I'm like, must be real. Like,
I love it.
My amazing artist is an actual graffiti artist, you know, and this is just how he rocked up. And I was like, if you don't mind, you're going to be like blasted over everywhere, but I'm going to cover you up.
Yep.
And then obviously later on when I posted it, I tagged him and he got all the recognition that he needs, etc. But that was my view on like brand versus paid.
Yep.
I prefer doing things like this. I've got 6 others planned over the next year.
Nice.
With all varying levels of illegalness.
Yep. Fuck.
But
I love that.
This to me doesn't happen that much in New Zealand. We're scared.
We're scared.
But I've learned from every big dog in the world that absurdity is the cheapest form of marketing.
Oh, 100%.
And I'm like, well, I literally have a brand that makes smiles. Like, let's go and make some. Like, that's
we're all about it. Like if you watch the attention seeker stuff, that's all we do.
Of course.
It's like Joni's like, oh, we're in a rut. You got to pretend to fire me. Like
100%, right?
Like we need views.
and that's just genuinely it. Like social media is a game, and it's like and it's a tool. Play it, use it. Like don't like authenticity, absolutely. But that's me being authentic. I'm showing you these cool little tactics that I do. I'll peel it back afterwards. I'll show you. You know, like. But to me, like. That's where I want to see the brand going, and not just this brand, but like in general. I really, really thrive on brands that are genuinely trying to build their name, not through Facebook. Yeah. If I hear one more brand tell me that like their ROAS is at this, I'm like, my ROAS can be sitting at a permanent this. I don't care. As long as it's good, we're sweet. Like all I care about is making sure people know the Whitening Co, and that's how I've always driven it. And I've got people to help me make sales in the background, absolutely. But that's how it's growing, is from wanting to be known. Yeah,
that's cool. I love it. That's fantastic because like from a lot of people, what I really like is your transition from personal brand to real brands. Like you took the same thing you applied to your personal brand. Yeah. I mean, and then you do it to this. And I always find it real interesting when you talk to creators who want to do this, but then they're like, oh, I don't know how to do this next part. It's like, just do the thing you just did. Like, you got 500,000 followers. Just like,
I know, that's like gold mines being set on it. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like, obviously, hire the people that you need to do the things that you're not good at. Absolutely. But like, if anything, I'm not doing it enough on my own. Like, if you're all really good at being on social already, you've got a business. Let's be real. Like, that's
I've sort of figured out after talking to heaps of them that where they struggle, and what I actually learned with Joni is like working with her is that, which she's far better at now, but they couldn't articulate what they did, and that was the problem.
Well, because it's such a new thing, right? Well, in the scheme of it all, it's like
and they just fluked them way into it. From their point of view, they didn't realize how
I'm just lucky I had a video that got and I used to say stuff like that too, like, oh my god, like it was just so like I don't know, I had an Instagram, like it worked really well, like that. I'm like, no, because if that was. Yeah, I mean, you could get into that for so long, right? But like the creating of it itself and being able to put yourself in that position, whether it's, good or bad, you're definitely really putting yourself out there. The more that I do that, the more success comes from it. Yeah. Like literally, no matter what, I promise you, like every hard road trip, everything that's happened from it all is doubled down by the success of everything else. So I'm like, there's still days where it's hard. Don't get me wrong. Like I've got this little hack.
Like, that's our life.
I've got this hack where I've like got a bunch of like saved videos. I've got my dogs. I've got me. There are days absolutely where I don't want to turn up on social. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, but I'm still there in theory in a certain way to ensure that like these continue to grow.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. All right, Look, we've gone well over. It's been 90 minutes since we've been going, but
Sorry about that.
No, it's been great. It's honestly been really good. I really enjoy talking to people who have managed to take their creative world and turn it into business, because that's like obviously what I'm all about.
That's exactly
right?
what
So
I
love talking about this sort of shit. And I could probably talk to you for another 4 or 5 hours, but the boys probably want to get out of this room. So we're going to finish up
Hit me.
by just saying thank you. That's it. I'm going to say thank you. I think Connor wants me to do some quick fire things, but I don't know if I should finish this off. Yeah, so I'm just going to finish this podcast off. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been awesome.
Thank you for having me.
We have to catch up again properly. In
Yeah,
our
I can't wait to
That's
come
not
back
like,
into the attention seat.
yeah,
This is cool, man.
And not do like one where this camera's not rolling. I mean, there's always cameras rolling.
There's
but
always
maybe
cameras
not-
rolling here.
Maybe not so much fucking lights going on us.
No, thank you for
so
having
much.
me, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome.